All right, yeah. So this is getting booked for gigs as an independent artist. I am Fantom Freq. So a little introduction. Who am I? Fantom Freq. My real name's Josh Miranda. Born and raised Los Angeles. I'm an Icon Collective graduate. Graduated in 2016. If you don't know Icon Collective, they're a music production school based in Burbank, just north of LA. Formerly, I was A&R for House of Hustle. Love that label. Love the owner, Patrick Stett. We're still in good contact, good standing. But nowadays, I own and do A&R for my own label, Thiccfreqness Records. We sign a lot of house, UK garage breaks, because that's a lot of the stuff that I write myself and the stuff that I play out. And just kind of like an overview of some of the labels I've been signed to: 3000 Bass, Bite This, Country Club Disco, DND, Gold Digger in Rotation, Space Yacht, Terminal Underground, and many more. Where have I played? So this is kind of like the highlights here. I've definitely played a lot more places, but these are the highlights. In LA, the big clubs I played at: Academy, Avalon Exchange, Sound, Time Nightclub, Insomniac Festivals, EDC 2018, 2022, and Countdown 2023. Other festivals, these are like desert festivals out in like the Mojave here, Off the Grid, Jackson, and Jackson Tree. Some of the US cities I played in: Austin, Chicago, Las Vegas, Miami, Phoenix, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle. And internationally, Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and Milan, Italy. And soon to be adding Tokyo to this list. So as many of you know, as an independent artist, you're always wearing many hats. I'm always definitely wearing many hats. And as far as getting gigs, there's many ways to skin a cat, but I'm going to be speaking to the ways I've been able to get gigs. So maybe you guys can have get some ideas and some takeaways from my personal experiences. Obviously, the main driver here is performing as a DJ. But the other roles that have been kind of supporting that in me getting gigs are being a club promoter. I had a pretty long stint there from 2012 to 2018 being a club promoter. I'm going to go into more detail with each of these. Being a music producer from 2015 when I started at Icon Collective, A&R, doing A&R work for House of Hustle, and then now doing A&R for my label, and then obviously label owner just about 3 years ago. These are some of my core guiding principles and kind of my overall mindset when it comes to getting gigs, but this is pretty much applicable to any kind of area in your life, I think. Number one, establishing your network, building relationships and quality friendships. That's taken me very, very far. Just making friends, just making genuine friends and relationships has helped me get a lot of gigs, primarily. Creating win-win situations, win-win relationships, that kind of adds on to establishing your network and building relationships. Leveraging value. So I was going to talk a little bit about this. So I think the easiest way to leverage value, obviously, is if you have, a hit song. It makes everything way easier to get bookings. You'll end up getting like an agent and a or a manager and booking agent. Makes life a lot easier. But for an independent artist, like, you probably don't have hits. You probably have a lot of really great music, but maybe not that like hits that are like getting millions and millions of streams. So you still have to leverage value in some way or another, and everybody has value to give. Basically what it comes down to is helping other people get what they want so you can get what you want. And it's like the law of karma. So just helping other people without the expectation of getting something in return, because whatever goes around comes around. You put out good energy is going to come back, basically. Um, Number four, asking you shall receive, closed mouths don't get fed. So when in doubt, always ask. And I'll kind of go into more detail about that later on, and how that's really helped me get a lot of gigs. Ultimately, the worst you can get is a no from somebody or a not response. And the way I always view it is rejection is redirection. So if somebody tells you no, that doesn't mean it's never, or maybe it's just like a not right now, or it'll just lead you into another opportunity. And lastly here, have fun, do what brings you joy with the people that bring you joy, and FES energy. So that's kind of how I lead my life for the most part. Follow that FES energy. I'm kind of keeping it PG because I know this is going to go on YouTube. So I'm trying to avoid any kind of cussing or anything. Um, so yeah, and like a caveat here, I'm actually not naturally an extrovert. I'm probably more along the lines of an ambivert. I think that kind of goes along the lines with most people here. Being an artist, you tend to be more introverted. Um, but yeah, once I go into more of the details as far as like being a promoter and establishing your network, yeah, the caveat here is basically you don't need to be this extroverted person to um, build your network and meet people and go out and do all this stuff. So number one, promoter. So after graduating from college, being a broke college graduate, I wanted to make some extra side cash. I got into electronic music in college, started DJing, and I wanted to play in clubs. So I started just going out to clubs, met a lot of promoters, and I got into joining this promotion group in Orange County called Till Dawn Group. They promoted for clubs in Orange County and LA, specifically Avalon, Hollywood, Sutra, Create Now, Create Nightclub, which is now Academy, Time Nightclub, and Tao Beach and Yost Theater. So pretty much I was going out 2 or 3 times a week, just meeting people like out on say like smoky patios or just in the club. Sound and lighting people, other DJs, other promoters, club staff, just building my network, just basically just meeting friends and establishing relationships. Eventually, just after doing that for a while, that led me to actually playing those clubs, playing those venues, just by working in the space. Um, and that opened the door to a lot of different parties too, because I was meeting DJs and promoters from other groups outside of Till Dawn Group. So they would basically invite me to their parties and their venues. And I did a lot of that. I also did like some gig exchanges too. So like sometimes a DJ would be like, "Hey, I would like just invite DJs without the expectation of them booking me for their venues, but I would just be like, "Hey, you want to play blah blah blah." And then like later on down the line, they would just hit me up like, "Hey, do you want to play my party now?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that'd be dope." Um, so yeah, when I started doing that, that was basically, going back to that idea of exchanging value, leveraging value. Eventually working with Till Dawn Group, I became a DJ booker. Like I just mentioned, I was booking DJs there. A couple of these venues that I was promoting for had side rooms, so I was booking the side rooms with a lot of up and coming DJs, local DJs. Um, so yeah, that kind of put me into those spaces and got me bookings there. So yeah, that's as far as the promotion aspect of it. And just over time, just helped me build my network. Um, the production aspect of it. So I think just like a natural progression, being a DJ for so long, I wanted to kind of go to the next level. So I had always been musical. Taught myself guitar like in my teens, played piano, was in choirs. So it just seemed like a natural progression to start producing my own music. So that's why I went to Icon Collective from 2015 to 2016. Again, it was great because not only did I learn music production, but it also helped me expand my network. I've met a lot of artists, DJs, producers, and vocalists, and just people just within the music industry as a whole. So that was really great. I was still promoting at the time, but kind of in a lesser aspect because, music production took pretty much the bulk of my time. But I was still booking, artists at these clubs. And again, just helping people out, trying to get them bookings, and eventually that, helping other people just kind of comes back to you too. So yeah. Um, and then it was around this time after I finished Icon Collective, shortly after that, I started getting assigned to labels. So probably one of the first labels I got signed to was House of Hustle. Um, and that kind of led me into becoming an A&R eventually. But I established a relationship with the label owner just because I was sending him so much music, and he was looking for somebody to kind of help out with the label because I think he was basically doing everything on his own at that point. So he kind of just was asking for help, and I was like, yeah, I'm down to help, no problem. Um, and this last one down here, label signing to Cats and Boots Records. So that was basically signing that music to Cats and Boots Records was the caveat to getting into those Insomniac festivals. Um, I had sent music to them just because I liked the label, not even knowing that they booked for Insomniac. So I sent music to them, they accepted it, they released it on a compilation. And once EDC rolled around, they're like, "Hey, do you want to play?" I was like, duh, like, of course I want to play." And then I established that relationship and I just kept in touch with them. And ever since then, every once in a while they'll hit me up like, "Hey, we're going to be doing a stage at, EDC again this year. Do you want to come play?" Like, of course. And the same thing happened with Countdown. So yeah, that's how I've managed to get those bookings as well. The A&R aspect of it. So yeah, like I said, I established a really good relationship with the label owner, Patrick. Um, Patrick Stett, he goes by Dirty Rituals. Yeah, really great guy. Um, so he was looking for somebody to help with the label. I happily obliged. Essentially, I was doing the work for free. But and the great thing about Patrick is he was in a way he was concerned. He was like, okay, so you're gonna be helping me out, but what do you want to get out of this? And I was, at first I didn't know how to respond to it. I was just like, yeah, I kind of just want to learn the ropes of running a label and all that. But eventually I learned from doing the work, from doing A&R work, that I could leverage the label to book takeovers and book shows, kind of like what Alex does a little bit with Storytime too. So I learned that I could do that. So it became really easy for me to, sign a lot of like really great artists. And I wasn't an A&R like in the traditional sense where I was going through like the demo box. The label owner would go through the demo box. I was actually going out and like scouting for new people. So I would go out and reach out to people and be like, "Hey, like I like your music, I like your sound. Can you like send me some stuff? And maybe we can get you onto House of Hustle." So I was doing a lot of that. And in doing that, I was also building shows from a lot of the artists that I was signing. So that also was in a way leveraging value. I was taking these new artists, getting them shows, and some of them would like come back and like, "Hey, do you want to play this party?" Or "Hey," like, and they would just kind of like lead me to another opportunity. Like, "Hey, this other guy throws a party here. Maybe you can reach out to him and do a takeover with them, blah, blah, blah. So basically just, everyone was leading me in new directions and kind of leading me to more gigs, which is ultimately what I wanted. We did a lot of label takeovers with House of Hustle, with All You Can Eat. That's a production company in Orange County. MDA, another one in Orange County. Space Yacht, of course. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know who Space Yacht is. And Space Taco, another promotion company out in Pomona, east of LA. And this led me to playing a lot of these cities outside of LA. We did a takeover in Austin, did one in Miami, did one in Vegas, Fort Lauderdale, and San Francisco. Um, and yeah, really cool. I got to celebrate my 30th birthday in Cabo San Lucas. That's actually where the label owner lives. It's really funny. He's like this like tall Swedish guy, but his Spanish is immaculate. Like his Spanish is way even better than mine. Like it's funny, it's hilarious. But he's a really cool guy. He was very welcoming. We threw this party together in Cabo San Lucas, me, him, and my roommate at the time, Tommy, who was also doing A&R on the label too. Um, and yeah, that's how House of Hustle kind of led me in that direction. Kind of taught me the ropes of running a label and doing label work, and that kind of led me into doing my own label. Because I think the reality is like my sound was starting to divert away from the stuff that Patrick was signing on House of Hustle. So that tends to be a little bit more techy, like tech house. I tend to make a lot more like bassy, kind of like aggressive, dark bass house. So I decided, maybe I should just go in my own direction. And he was like totally cool about it. He was like, "Yeah, like that's what you love doing. Like definitely go after it." Um, and just by happenstance, this last one here in Milan, Italy, I made friends with Kaishi. She's an Italian house producer. I've just been friends with her online for like the longest time. And I made a trip out to, I was already planning on making a trip out to Europe with some friends. So we traveled all the way through, we went through the UK, we went through Rome, Paris, and then I told her I was like, I'm gonna stop by in Milan, where she's from. Um, like, are you guys doing anything out there? Because she works with a promotion company out there called Disco Pastrami. Like, are you guys doing out there? Like, I'd love to stop by. And she was like, yeah, actually, we can book you for a show, and I could put you on my radio show while you're here if you're down. I was like, hell yeah, of course. Like, of course I'm down for that. So then she sorted that out with a lot of her friends and other Italian house producers. They throw that show out there. So yeah, that was a really great opportunity. I'm thankful to them for that. Lastly here, label owner. So yeah, I established the label in 2021. I launched it on my birthday, June 4th, 2021. Um, and a little background on the label. Thiccfreqness, that name comes from a Black Keys album. I'm a big fan of blues and rock. So obviously Thiccfreqness, they spelled it differently, but I spelled it with two C's and a Q. But yeah, that's kind of like an homage to the Black Keys. Um, so yeah, I established the label June 4th, 2021. We did an album release party, a label launch party at the Monarch in San Francisco. The way I was able to do that one, I have a lot of friends in San Francisco that I've just met through music. One of my homies happened to be a promoter, or I don't think he was promoting specifically for the Monarch, but he kind of led me in the right direction of getting the talent buyer's information. So he was like, yeah, like reach out to her, blah, 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 pitch your party. And then we can see if we can get something going. And this was granted, this was at the tail end of COVID. So there was still some COVID restrictions. This was barely when things were opening back up. But we had managed to get it going. We had Shadows as the headliner, myself, and my other homie Eric Mark, who played that night. But yeah, it was a really great way to launch the label. Um, the label itself first started as like a self-release vehicle. So the first release on the label was actually an album that me and my buddy Eric Mark put together. I still do a ton of self-release on the label, but now I've started to kind of sign other artists. And that's kind of led into this next thing, which is label takeover. So as happenstance with the label, I've actually been able to leverage the value of the label to bring on a bunch of other artists that I sign and build out these parties. So far we've played in Area 15 in Las Vegas. We've done a couple of takeovers at Space Taco. We did one at Underwear last year for the anniversary party. They're like an underground warehouse party. That's like a weekly or bi-weekly. Um, and also through the label, I managed to get to play in Chicago with the homie Frivolous Jackson. He signed on the label, and he helped put that party together. And then up next, yeah, Yuhei Sensei. I think he's also on Storytime too, right? Yeah. So yeah, Yuhei Sensei, he's been sending music for a while, and like I really love what he's doing as a producer. And finally, I was like, there was something that he sent me that I really, really loved. I'm actually going to release it in April on a compilation. Um, but by happenstance, I was already going to be traveling to Tokyo, Japan. This was before I even was signing any of his music. I'd signed his track and then I thought about it. I was like, hey, I'm gonna be in Tokyo. Like, hey, like, so I hit him up, going back to that idea of asking you shall receive. Like I asked him, not expecting anything. I was just like, hey, do you know any promoters or event planners in Tokyo? And he was like, yeah, let me talk to some people and I'll get back to you. And I kind of just like let it go. I wasn't expecting anything. I didn't follow up with him. And then like maybe 2 weeks later, he hit me back up. He was like, yeah, like so I wasn't able to find any promoters, but actually I'm gonna do you one better. We're going to throw a party for you. We're gonna rent out a venue and we're gonna all like be supporting artists and you can headline for us. I was like, that's amazing. I love that. So yeah, he kind of sorted that out and got me that booking in Tokyo. So yeah, definitely grateful to Yuhei Sensei. Um, but yeah, that is basically the general. I kind of just like blew through that, ran through that. But that's kind of should give you an overall idea of my experience. Emerging from a promoter to producer to A&R to label owner now. And it should give you a lot of ideas on how to approach getting gigs yourself. Going back to those core values that I have, I think those have served me very, very well in getting gigs. This is what I have coming up next. Tokyo, San Diego, doing a takeover in Huntington Beach, and then another just one-off in San Diego. Some of my goals this year are to do Beyond Wonderland. I'm going to Miami Music Week. I haven't booked any gigs for that yet, but I'm like still reaching out to people. So hopefully, I'm just crossing my fingers to that. Hopefully I can play EDC to get EDC again this year. So I'll probably reach out to the homies for that. And I really been meaning to go to the UK because I've been looking at my analytics with my music, and the UK really, really loves my music. So I feel like that would be a great place to go this year. I'm already planning to go to Munich and Prague. It's my brother's birthday in September. He wants to do Oktoberfest. So I figure since I'm already going to be there, might as well see if I can get a gig. Amsterdam, I'm gonna go to ADE this year as well, so I'll see if I can swing something for that. And Escape from Wonderland has always been like a dream of mine because like I'm a spooky boy, so I want to play some spooky music at a spooky festival. Yeah, this is the end. Um, so we can go to questions, but yeah, if you could, just give me a follow on all the things.
You want to put a link in the chat or anything? If you
Yeah,
have
I could throw a link for the chat.
I unmuted, by the way, guys, or I opened up the unmute option. So yeah, if you guys have questions, jump in. A lot of good stuff in there, Josh.
Thank you.
Any questions, anyone?
I just want to say what up, man. Good job, by the way.
Oh, hey, what's up, Eric?
How you doing, dude?
Good. How about yourself? Yeah, actually, Eric was the one that helped with that Area 15 takeover.
Yeah, buddy. And if I can add on to anything like that I've learned too, is like just shed love on people and it comes back tenfold, man. Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that law of karma. Just put out good energy.
So Mike
Amen.
has a question in the chat. He's asking, do you ever do cold outreach to bookers?
Yeah, definitely. I've done plenty of that. It's definitely a lot more precarious, and it's easier to get overlooked and get a non-response. Honestly, like my success rate on just doing a cold reach out is probably like 10% or less. It's a lot easier when you actually go out to the parties and actually meet people in person because they can put a face to the name, and there's actually some kind of connection there. So I would always recommend meeting these people in person. It just makes everything way easier.
Yeah.
One question on top of that. So like when you're meeting these industry folks in person, like what's maybe one or two ways that you've been able to kind of convert that like meeting in person to converting them to a new kind of contact or follow you somewhere or what have you to kind of call them like a new lead for
Mhm.
booking a future event?
Um, Funny enough, most of the time when I when I meet people that are in the industry, I actually meet them through socials first. So there's actually some familiarity that I establish through socials, like especially of like other artists that I really love their music. I'll just start chatting with them online and like sending memes and just like actually being like a friend, being silly. So that when I actually meet them in person, like there's actually like already kind of an established relationship, and it just makes everything more smooth and easy.
Do you think is there a way is there a way to get bookings without maybe pursuing the like it sounds like most of these opportunities have come from you working with a company or a production company or promoter or
Mhm.
booker. I mean, for artists maybe that don't know how to get started with a company, or do you have to find a way to work in the industry, or are there strategies to maybe just like focus on the music side of it and not the work? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think obviously, yeah, I think there's definitely a way where you can just focus on the music, but the reality is like having really strong relationships and friendship is going to take you way further than just kind of just holding up and being just like a veteran producer. At the end of the day, it's like having those really strong relationships is going to take you way further.
That makes sense. I was going to say, based on my experience too, like even when we're talking about festival bookings, when we talk about booking artists, we have the same conversation of like, who do we think will bring the value to the festival? Like, who do we think will sell tickets? Like
Yeah.
we pick artists even at like the A, B level based on our our relationship with them and being like, do we think that they can actually sell tickets? Will they actually promote the show? Will they be a homie in the sense of like helping us out with this? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some questions in the chat, looks like, Mike. Additionally, how do you go about meeting and networking with venue staff to get into certain clubs?
So I think you can, like I said earlier, you can actually just meet promoters on socials, because people are posting stuff all the time. Um, and kind of establishing like an online relationship makes an in-person relationship 10 times easier and quicker and smoother because there's some sort of familiarity that's already built instead of like kind of just like cold reaching somebody in person.
Makes sense.
Roshi asks, how does one get thick like you?
You go to the gym a lot.
Yeah, I go like 6 times a week, but I only lift like 3 times a week.
The rest of the time you're in there making music or you're networking.
Yeah.
Alicia had a question too. They're asking, other than getting a job in the industry and building these friendships from there, what kind of events or things do you suggest going to as an emerging artist?
So honestly, like stuff like this, like this is really great. It's gonna help you, just meet people within the music industry. I know you guys well, you're based in Seattle, like I'm in LA. Like, how else like would we have met? Probably, very slim chances of us ever meeting,
Yeah. Well, we met
So-
on Grinder, right? So that's a joke.
Exactly.
That's a joke.
Exactly. But yeah, going to events like this, there's tons of them. That's also part of the reason why I'm going to Miami Music Week in ADE is to kind of also network there. I've never been to either, but I always hear really great things, so that's why I'm kind of going out to that. And just going out to like clubs and festivals, I mean, you can definitely, establish a network that way too.
Mikkel had a good question that I was looking to ask kind of too. Do you think you'd be in a similar position now without Icon? Like how useful was the school for your career and bookings?
Ooh. Honestly, I don't think I would be in the same position that I am now. Only because like before Icon, I barely knew anything about music production. And Icon for me was basically like a 1 year boot camp. So like I was just like nose to the grind like for a full 12 months of just music production. So like banging my head against the wall, writing music every single week. And that kind of taught me a ton in a very kind of short amount of time. I guess 12 months isn't really that short, but it basically just hammered in a lot of information pretty quickly. And from there, I was able to, kind of leverage music, which just added more, value under my tool belt.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Kind of following up on that, I was curious, like what value do you think it could provide someone who's also like learn, do you think it would provide value to someone who's like learned the fundamentals of music production, but still feels like they haven't mastered it?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is we're all still students. Like I'm still learning a bunch of stuff. I don't feel like I've even mastered music. I'm consistently learning. That's actually one of the reasons why I love doing collaborations so much is because I can always learn something new from another producer, whether it's like a different technique or sound design or, the different way of sampling or just like new plugins. Like one of the homies, Spacewalk, literally every time we sit down, we always finish a track the same session, but I always learn something new from him every time we sit down, which is great.
Oh, he's so talented.
Oh yeah, Spacewalk. Yeah, Luke is he's insane.
Alex had a question in here. He's asking, how do you he says, you're saying that you're not a natural extrovert. They are too. Sometimes seem introverted and trying to reach out to talk to people. How do you overcome that to branch out and work on your networking or build the networking?
Yeah, I'm kind of like what I said. I mean, it's I think if you can meet people online first, it kind of takes away that the jitters and the anxiety of having to just like cold approach somebody and not knowing what to expect. So I think if you can kind of establish some sort of relationship online, it makes things 1,000 times easier when you meet them in person.
The power of memes, man,
Yeah. Actually, I mean, like I said with Spacewalk, like I actually didn't meet him until, we were just following each other on socials, and then we happened to do like this interview with what's his name? His name's just I just lost his name right now. But we did like an interview together because we had been collaborating together. Or no, we didn't collaborate until after that interview. But I actually got to see him and talk to him kind of like face to face. And then after that, we started collaborating together, and we kind of we realized that our styles really match really well. So it kind of just bloomed from there.
CN is asking, what are some industry key networking events that you maybe recommend on the West Coast? This one, of course.
Yeah, this one, of course. Other networking events on the West Coast. Yeah, see, that's I don't really know. I mean, the reality I think is just going out to your local nights, whatever that is, because you can meet so many people at those events. Going to Space Shop pretty regularly. That smoking patio has, introduced me to so many people. Um, and it's kind of like known for that, knowing that you're gonna meet like other producers within the industry because everybody loves Space Yacht. So you're bound to run into somebody and meet somebody that you probably wouldn't have met otherwise.
Mike has some
That
more
sounds
questions.
smoking patio. Be smacking.
Would you say your production did as much work for you in terms of getting bookings as your networking, or did it kind of accent it, or which one do you think kind of helped you more in terms of?
No, I think the reality is I think it accented it. Because I had the network before the music. So if anything, it just added value onto what value I already had, you know? And it kind of just introduced me to a lot of just like really cool people. Like Choli's talking right now, that's Henry, but his roommate Broshi, I've written a ton of music with him too. So, and we actually just signed a EP that's coming out soon, like in a couple of months, I think.
Is it like a chicken and egg thing? Like, do you need the production first and then the networking, or the networking first and then the production or the technical skill, or does it not matter? Or what?
I don't think it matters. You can do either way. I know a lot of people who are producers first and DJs later, like Luke Spacewalk. He was a producer first and he learned to DJ after. Whereas I'm the opposite. I was a DJ first and learned how to produce after, you know? I don't think there's not really a right or wrong way to doing this stuff. Like I said, there's many ways to skin a cat. There is no right or wrong way. There's just your way, you know?
Dennis had a question as well. A lot of experience in classical music. They're still very early stage of learning production. At what point did you start realizing that you found a sound for yourself? Is the first question.
When I started liking what I was making, because I think at first I was just kind of learning, so I was just making anything and everything, not really caring about if I enjoyed it or I was just basically working on finishing a product early on. And then I think I got to a point where I was like, oh, I actually really enjoy making bass house. I really enjoy making UK garage. I really enjoy making breaks. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm actually onto something. Like I just have to keep following that essentially.
And Dennis, I'm not sure if I understand the second part of your question. Do you want to unmute and kind of ask that yourself?
Do you think DJing is a critical skill, or are there artists just producing music and distributing online? Well, I mean, the talk we're having here is about getting booked for gigs. So yeah, essentially, like, yeah, if you want to get gigs, I think DJing is actually pretty crucial, unless you're doing some sort of other live performance aspect with electronic music, which is possible. You can definitely do that. But yeah, I think DJing is definitely crucial if you want to get gigs.
If you're making electronic, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much.
What do you love about what you do? It's really brought me the most love and joy in my entire life. Like I recently had this kind of existential crisis because I started a new job and I realized how much I hated it, because the reason why I hated it was because it was taking away time from music, which I love so much. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit this job. And I did. I quit that job because I love music so much. Honestly, music has brought me so much joy and love into my life. Like it's basically like a child. So I'd rather quit a job that I hate than, give up music.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Which of your roles that you've had quite a few, which do you think of those have been the most impact, or which one of those roles has been the most impactful for you in terms of getting bookings? Has it been the doing the events or doing the label or the A&R stuff? What's been the most direct path to like getting more bookings?
I would say the promotion aspect of it, only because it taught me a ton of skills, especially soft skills, like talking to people. Because like I said, I'm not naturally an extrovert. So basically it was just like exposure therapy, just having to kind of hammer and just like meet people and talk to people over and over and over again, establish relationships. That was probably by far the most crucial and beneficial. That's not to take away from any of the other roles, because they all serve their purpose and they all actually helped out a ton. But I feel like without those skills of being a promoter, those other ones probably wouldn't have been as impactful.
Hmm. Do you think that being in the position of like being that booker and coordinating those events, is that kind of something that can transfer to other styles of music? I know with DJs, it's very like, come play our party and you can have 6 DJs back to back or for, 6 hours straight. It's a little bit easier, but with bands or maybe live artists, it's a little bit more complicated. Do you think that strategy still works in terms of like getting into that type of position?
I think that could still work. In fact, that takeover I was talking about, underwear. Funny enough, they actually have two stages. They have like the main room, which I mean, it's an underground warehouse party, so they usually do after hours, like 11 p.m. to like 5 a.m. But they usually have two rooms. They have the main room, which is a DJ or multiple DJs, and then they have a side room where they actually have bands, which is really cool. I've never seen that done before. But they kind of like cornered that market. But yeah, I feel like you could definitely do that with a live performance aspect and bands and stuff.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? You can feel free to unmute as well. Good time to practice your extroversion, talking to people. You got a guy right here that gets bookings. Connect, ask
Yeah,
questions.
I'm happy to answer any questions too. And you guys can follow me. I mean, if you guys think of any questions later on, you guys can just hit me up on like Instagram or any of my other socials.
Yeah, I got a question for you. Just going back to the kind of networking approach of like an online first approach and like direct messaging. You mentioned like promoters and other artists.
Mhm.
Do you have like examples of like how you'd open up that like conversation? Is it like being like kind of a fan first and saying like, oh, I appreciate what you're doing, and that
Mhm.
nurtures that relationship, or is it even like more direct to like getting a booking itself? I was just
Mhm.
wondering if you got some examples and maybe meme examples too, because you called
Yeah.
out memes being a key part there.
Yeah, so I think specifically with like promotion companies, actually I've done this recently where there's a lot of parties that I've been wanting to get booked at in LA. So I kind of did a cold reach out. Like I followed some of these promotion companies and some of them actually followed me back too. So I just sent a message like, "Hey, I love what you guys do. I've been to a few of your parties. If you guys are accepting bookings, I would love to send you my EPK." I didn't do it like I didn't just send my EPK. I was just like, I asked permission, like, "Hey, are you guys okay with me sending you my EPK? You guys can maybe take a look at it, see if you're interested." And then usually I would wait for a response back. Some of them I didn't get any response, but actually I would say about 50% I got a response back. They're like, "Yeah, sure, of course you can send your EPK." So yeah, I'm kind of working on that. That was actually, I only did that like maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm kind of working on that, but I think that's definitely another approach. You can definitely do that. And I will let you know if that's actually fruitful or not.
So
First-hand experience.
50% response rate, it's pretty solid. So
Yeah.
Honestly, that's a great point. Because I get a lot of spam, with being the label owner, I get a lot of DMs or random messages with people that send just an EPK or like just a link to a Spotify tracker, just something without any context and no request for like permission or information. And like now that you mention it, I just glaze over those. I don't even do a second glance over. Like I don't really care to read it. I get a lot of them.
Yeah.
But when somebody asks me like, "Hey, are you accepting submissions or can we talk about whatever?" like kind of posing it that way, it makes me ask the question of myself like, are we accepting submissions? Like,
Mhm.
oh, and this guy or this girl is very friendly and polite. Like, sure, like, yeah, send us what you got. And we might not, proceed with a show or a release or something, but at least now we've started that rapport. And then we go to the memes or whatever, it becomes more like conversational and
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
even
because
follow up and be like, hey, did you have a chance to look at this yet? Or something like that.
yeah, because I feel like the other way of just dropping demos or just dropping an EPK is kind of presumptive and it really provides zero context and they're kind of just like it kind of gives me the energy of like give me that thing.
Right, right. It's like you have to hear this. I expect you to listen to this, or I
Yeah.
expect you to look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
good
insights.
question.
Thanks very much. Great
Anyone
insights.
else?
Actually, I do. When submitting like content or material to a club or an organization, do you value submitting your own music more or less than like a mix, for example? Like what's the sort of balance or format to send out stuff?
So with getting booked at a club, I would actually go out to that night and kind of just hang out and meet people there. If you're gonna do like a cold reach out, like I mentioned, like I said, I would ask permission first and try to send an EPK. Or if you're gonna send a mix, actually, I think a mix would be ideal because it kind of shows off and demonstrates the kind of music that you play and kind of like your technical ability. Are you speaking from like a electronic background or like a live performance kind of background?
Yeah, electronic, yeah, like bass
Yeah,
music.
so yeah, I would say, ask permission if you can send like a mix or an EPK, and see if they're receptive and then send after that. And if you can, I would actually highly recommend going to their party and kind of just hanging out and meeting people.
But thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, it almost seems to me like a reverse pyramid scheme where like once you start getting to know some people, you get exposed to more people who then expose you to more people, and then you get to that point where you just you're well known, like, and
Yeah.
then you have the cross contamination of like other cities, other venues, other promotion companies, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, good questions, guys. Anyone else? Nikki, anything from you? Midnight Gossip? Jared, I see you muted.
I'm in Canada and I have a like electronic band, so slightly different position, I guess.
Is it though? I mean, could some of these work for you? I mean, are you doing shows? Are you promoting shows or booking shows or
Yeah, I mean the struggle for where we're at is we have to book outside of our city because there's not a ton of venues for us. So yeah, it's just kind of cool to hear um, your trajectory of things. It's kind of making me think of some new things we could be doing for sure. So appreciate it.
That's good. That at least got your wheels turning, basically. That's good.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll start my own label.
Jared, I saw you unmuted. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a question. First of all, uh, thank you for putting this together. Thank you, Josh, for sharing your story and your insights. You mentioned a lot of different roles and a lot of different cool stuff. I'm curious about like the soft skills and like what I guess I'll frame the question like this: what role out of all the things that you described took you the most out of your comfort zone? And if you care to share any of the soft skills that, maybe some situations that taught you a lesson, for good or for bad, kind of what role was the biggest learning curve for you?
Yeah, again, I would say probably promotions because like I said, I'm not naturally an extrovert. Like I said, more of like an ambivert, so I can be like very social if I want to be, but my social battery runs out very quickly. So yeah, that's definitely out of my comfort zone. But I think what helped the most was hanging out with other extroverts. So it kind of pulled me out of my shell. I think going to a lot of parties, just being a promoter, it kind of facilitated having to go out to parties, so I had to meet people. But also bringing along friends who are natural extroverts, that kind of just made things a lot easier for me. So I wasn't alone. I wasn't having to have this anxiety of like, oh, like what does this person think about me, blah blah blah, all that stuff. It just made things a lot easier. Um, and then eventually I was just able to do it by myself. So I think nowadays, like especially nowadays, I can go to parties alone and not mind it because my network is pretty expansive enough where I'm just gonna run into people. It just naturally happens, especially in LA. It's like a 50-50 chance that I'll run into somebody that I already know, other producers or DJs or promoters. Um, but back then, yeah, it always helped having other like extroverted friends around because they kind of helped help bring it out of my shell, basically. Did I answer your question or did I miss a part of it?
No, that's awesome. So strength in numbers and these
Yeah.
friends that you'd be hanging out with, I would assume, let me not assume, let me ask, these are people that you had long-standing relationships, good friendships with, and
Yeah,
you kind of
yeah, they had been friends for like years. So I mean, and obviously they just loved going to the club for free too, so they would come along with me.
and you mentioned working with like a label owner and at first it was kind of like a volunteer. You're
Yeah.
basically volunteering your time, and then at some point the guy asked you like, hey, what are you getting out of um helping me out? And then
Mhm.
that kind of gave you the opportunity to say, well, I'd like to learn how to run a label. um how much of your like offering your services would in the beginning was just out of the love and just for free and just to kind of go to the show or hang out with the right people, versus at what point did you was there a point where you decided, hey, I'm going to start charging for all this, or is it still a mix? Like what's your kind of, do you have any kind of like policy or boundaries on that?
So yeah, when I was working with House of Hustle, I mean, I primarily did the role of A&R just because I loved it and I knew that I was going to get value out of it just by learning how to run the label. So that was the value I was getting out of it. Even though I wasn't getting paid, I was still getting value. So for me, that was the important thing. I didn't want to just like volunteer my time and not getting anything out of it. But I did get something, a lot of things out of it actually, because it helped me kind of establish a lot of the groundwork for running my own label, which was great. Um, and just as a consequence, it helped me kind of do takeovers because the House of Hustle brand logo name was very easy to leverage parties. So a lot of promoters were really keen to allow me to do takeovers because a lot of the artists on House of Hustle, they were keen to book, and it made it a lot easier to facilitate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a really beneficial situation. And I'm working in a different genre of music. Probably I do a little more singer songwriter stuff, and I do more hip hop. But I do have a lot of friends in electronic music. I have really good friends who make bass music, house music. Um, how often are you going to events outside of your sphere? And I'm as musicians, a lot of my friends make all different types of music.
Mhm.
Do you ever go to networking events or events for genres that you maybe you have no interest necessarily in making the music, but in just forming friendships or just learning about kind of different parts of the music world?
As far as like networking events outside of the genre, not really, but I guess, people in here aren't all electronic producers, right? I mean, so just by happenstance, I mean, I feel like this is one of those spaces, but yeah, there's another group that I recently just joined, a bunch of like Portland producers. And I think maybe like half of them are electronic, the other half are like more like live performance. Um,
Could
but
you
yeah,
could you share that? I'm actually in Oregon, and that would be awesome to. I'd love to
yeah,
connect
let
with you
me
guys.
let me see. It's also on Meetup too. I can try finding that and then posting in the chat here. But
Awesome.
yeah, as far as like just going to events in general, I mean, I do like going to a lot of concerts. So like I recently went to go see Queens of the Stone Age, and then last year also saw Metallica at SoFi. So Yeah, I also, outside of electronic music, I like to see a lot of bands as well.
How often should
Queens of the
should
Stone Age
someone go
rules.
out?
Yeah, hell yeah.
How often should somebody go out? Like to start to really, if they really want to start tapping into this and really seeing results in terms of networking and getting those opportunities, like should they be going out 5 days a week, 1 day a week? Like, what are your thoughts?
I would say whatever works best for you, because I know everybody has like different schedules, different, different demands on their time. I would say if you can try at least going out once a week at the bare minimum, I think that would be great. You would get a lot of value out of that. Um, at my peak, I was probably going out like 3, 4 times a week, as a promoter. And that was actually very helpful. But also at the time, I wasn't producing music. So now that I produce music, I actually have to kind of balance out even more. So I make sure to, make sure I'm in the studio pretty much every day. And then once I, fulfill that promise to myself to write music, then it's kind of like getting, having your dinner before your dessert, where going out is kind of like the dessert. So I usually go out maybe twice a week nowadays.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Looks like Choli put a question in the chat more focused on
Yeah.
some production stuff.
A little off topic, getting booked, but favorite VST plugins, both effects and synths. Um, I think one of my favorites recently is Rift. It's like a distortion plugin, lots of really cool effects in there. Shaperbox is always a great one. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know Shaperbox. Um, and honestly, like a lot of just like Ableton stock stuff is actually really great. You don't need a whole lot of crazy, plugins to get some really cool stuff out of your productions. But yeah, definitely Rift and Shaperbox are some of my favorites recently. Any production tips, methods that you use in your productions that you feel are essential? Um, I think maybe just the routine thing. It's just showing up. I make it a habit to show up and write every day for a minimum of 30 minutes, even if it's not fruitful. Even if I just write pure garbage, like I still show up and write 30 minutes a day at minimum. Sometimes that'll last like I can go maybe longer, but if I can at least squeeze in 30 minutes on like a really busy day, then I fulfilled that promise to myself. And, it just kind of just builds a habit and routine of just constantly working on something. Dennis says, I had a full-time job for a while after college. Now I own two non-music businesses, EDM and classical music. Has always been a big part of my life, and now that I have more free time or self-controlled schedule, I have been spending time taking production classes online to catch up. Now that's great. Definitely, if you can learn more stuff, definitely do that. I know this is probably a very beginner kind of question for the audience here. Any suggestions for how to efficiently pick up hard production skills and DJ skills? Are there any shortcuts or I just have to take some courses with Icon? Honestly, I think it's just putting your nose to the grind and just getting the reps, just getting hand-on experience. If you can get, as far as DJ skills, if you can get a hold of, your own controller or something and just practice on your own, that would be great. I mean, I have my own CDJs here, so it's very easy for me. But yeah, having your own controller, and they're not really expensive either, just like a built-in controller. And that'll be easy to kind of practice on. As far as production skills, yeah, I would suggest obviously like YouTube tutorials, and just lots of practice. If you can get into a music production school like as a beginner, that would be great. But I know a lot of people who are like intermediate where a music production school probably wouldn't be that beneficial.
Yeah, I would just put in the chat too. I feel like collaboration is a really great thing too, especially because you don't know what you don't know. And as soon as you get in the studio
Absolutely.
with somebody who is like really good at one thing, you're gonna hear that and be like, wow, I never thought about that. And I feel like that's a pretty quick way to also just pick up new things, new skills.
I should probably network with other students who collaborate and maybe they'll learn faster.
Yeah. There's I don't know if anyone here uses Reddit, but there's in the REDM production subreddit, there's a big, like every day I think they do a big like feedback collaboration thread where you can just like other people will listen to your music and give you feedback, and then you can listen to theirs and give feedback. And I think they do it every day, but it's always full of so many people just doing this thing of like making music, having people listen to it, giving them feedback, and that could be a starting place as well.
Yeah,
Cool, awesome.
I put the link to that Portland meetup in the chat. I think they meet on Mondays.
Well, thanks, Josh. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we're past the hour. Any last minute thoughts or any just questions on the tip of your tongue you want to get out? Now's the chance. Or you can follow him and DM him. But
Yeah, honestly, like I'm definitely open to taking questions if you guys maybe are too shy to ask here, or just if you think of something later on, just hit me up on Instagram. I'm happy to answer.
lots to think about indeed. And just again, a quick plug. We do a monthly mixer event with Storytime. Very open format, no structure. It's just intended to network with other people, music producers, DJs, managers, vocalists, instrumentalists. I just put a link in the chat. We have them the first Wednesday of every month. So March coming up will be the next one. But great place to network and meet other folks. So do we accept bassoonists? Yeah, we'll see. For you, Mike, yes. Okay, well, if nothing else, then thank you guys. And then this will be up on the YouTube channel probably in about a week or so. I'll send out an email if anybody wants to revisit, refresh, watch it.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, thanks so much.
Guys.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, Josh.
Yeah.
Great to have you.